have the feeling like this is different. I think there's something here. Was so invigorating because I think the Faceless EP is probably the best music I've ever made in my life. If my life ended after this came out, I'd be happy with this, leaving this behind.
Episode 23 of Invest in Music with West Ghost. Today we're here to talk about the Faceless EP, a new project from an anonymous artist that just started back in March. We talk about his roots growing a community in the back of Web3 and everything you can know about releasing music Onchain. As a reminder, you can collect this episode on investinmusic.xyz. It's the best way to support our guests, so without further ado, let's get into it. Episode 23 with West Ghost.
I'm sick of acting happy when deep down I'm feeling crappy. I'm sorry if I'm getting snappy, but fucking my head is nappy. I'm cutting off split ends. I'm done fucking with fake friends. Gotta go on with amen. Brandon dead in the basement. I'm spitting like some shady. Drop bombs like Tom Brady. I'm diving into this 16 like I up and join the Navy.
There it is. Hell yeah. All right, episode 23. We got West Ghost in the building. How we feeling, man?
I'm good, man. How you feeling?
I'm doing well. You're all layered up over here. You know, you look great, man. You look great.
It's a cold world, bro. You gotta stay cozy.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on, man. I'm really excited about the Faceless EP we're going to be talking about today. But it's been quite a journey for you, man. I'd love for you to maybe start with a little background on the West Ghost project and where everything came from.
Yeah, man. It has been a whirlwind. It's been really exciting. So basically, I started West Ghost in March. I've been in the NFT space probably since the end of 2021. Mm-hmm. And, I was like trading crypto and all that stuff. And then I got into collecting my first NFT projects, and I really fell in love with community. Like, obviously, it was a different time, more bull than bear market. Spirits were high, and I didn't have much money to kind of invest in bigger projects, but I would find projects like right when they were starting off, and I would just join the Discord and hang out with people and hop into spaces. And eventually, I always saw people like adding value, and I thought that was really dope part about the space was like without anything in return, just trying to like provide value. And for me, I always made music, and I thought to myself, like, why not make songs for these different communities? So I started making anthems for every single project that I was excited about the art or excited about the people. And I did that for about 6 months. And as great as it was to like work on my production and make anthems for projects, I kind of always knew that I wanted to do something Web3 related that tells more of my story. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where I came up with the idea. I'm going to find a project that I really, really vibe with. I love IP. So I was like, let me explore IP and really build kind of like the beginnings of the West Coast brand behind a character that I really like, and start to tell my story. So I started making music about my life growing up, stuff I'd never really written about, and less anthem project specific and more an in-depth look at my experience in life. So yeah, that's how it all got started, and dropped my first song in March as a music NFT. And a lot of the communities that I worked on music for early on really got behind it and supported it. And yeah, it just inspired me to keep going and keep making songs.
Yeah, and I mean, you came out of the gate with a blast. I mean, that first song must have done like 10 ETH, I want to say, or something. It had like 2,000 editions. I remember seeing it at the time, and I was just like, what is this West Coast project? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you could immediately just hear the quality of the music. And that's something that was very rare to me, is to see someone who is not only capable of having so much traction on the on-chain side of things, but also having the music to match it. Where it wasn't like it was a gimmick, like you were just getting support from a random NFT project. You just had trash music. Like, you had quality music that was being backed up by these communities that you were a part of. And I think it gave you such a strong leverage point out of the gate.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, I appreciate that. That was a big, not concern of mine, but I wanted my thing with being in love with different projects and also being a musician is like you're saying, like you hear a lot of songs about different projects, and they're so gimmicky, and they're just like Web3 related, like blockchain this and meta this. And I wanted to make quality music, like real music about my life. And I'm grateful for the initial support from those projects. The fact that they were able to love my anthems, but then support my story, was like a huge breath of fresh air, just to know that like I was able to kind of like transition like that, instead of, you know, dropping my first song and having it be an anthem for Pepe or something like that.
Right.
No shade on people who have done that, because, you know, to each their own. But I really wanted to show people that, you know, what can be done with IP, but what can also be done as far as your involvement both in projects, but then creating your own project kind of. Yeah.
And I mean, it definitely caught a chord, not only in Web3. I know that, you know, you started posting some reels, they caught some buzz, and then you had this project, and this song, Sleepwalking, actually gets signed to like a pretty major distributor. And I feel like it's just been really awesome to watch a song have such success that started in the Onchain world, now go and have a moment on TikTok and on reels and on Spotify. And that's something that's very rare for the space as a whole.
Yeah, thank you. That was a shock, to be honest. And it made my collectors really excited when they saw that the song was nearing 1 million streams, and there's only like 2,300 something copies of it, and they hold one. And I thought that was a really special moment to kind of show them that their belief in me early on. You know, whereas there's not really so much of a monetary return for them collecting that. They just, but it's the idea that they found me first. And as big as Sleepwalking gets, or as West Coast gets, they can always say that they were the first people to support my very first song ever, you know. And the 10K thing was you know, the label thing was very crazy. I've dealt with labels before in the past, and it isn't always the best scenario for some artists. I wouldn't recommend hopping into, you know, if you get some traction, creative control is really important. And the thing I liked about that situation was that they wanted to license a song, and it kind of already done what it was doing, but it wasn't like a full album situation where like all of a sudden I'm gonna have to wait to release more music. I could put out whatever I wanted afterward, and they kind of just add fuel to the fire there. And then the Reels thing has been absolutely unreal, man. No pun on words there, but you know, I had this idea. You know, I hear it a lot. Content and algorithms are buzzwords in the industry these days, and they're daunting for an artist that just wants to make music. You know, obviously marketing is such a big part of everything, any business that you want to do, music related or not, but content can be really daunting because you're at the hands of like this mysterious algorithm, or like putting the right hashtags, or like creating the most engaging content. And it stressed me out a lot. And when deciding to kind of like establish my presence in the Web 2 side of things, I just decided to have fun with it. And I wanted to post once or twice a day. And so far I've posted for like a month and a half every single day. And it's awesome because that consistency, and like I get burnt out. I'm like, well, what am I going to post today? I throw some anime clips together and then put my song to it and then call it a day for that post. But it's been a lot of fun to, you know, to experiment with ways to share the music that I'm making, because I really think it's an antiquated thought process to think that you're just going to post something, let's say on Spotify or Apple, the traditional platforms, and it's just going to blow up like that. Those days are kind of like over. And like, unfortunately, love it or hate it, like TikTok and Reels and all these other social media platforms, they're instrumental in putting eyeballs on what you're making. So I mean, don't get discouraged if you're an artist and you're not seeing immediate success. I had 300 followers on West Ghost a month ago, and now I'm, I think, over 10K or something like that. And it's incredible what can happen if you just stay consistent, really.
And I feel like it's the spirit that really just ties the two worlds together for me. You know, you mentioned in that early conversation when you said like, my collectors are excited to see that the streams are going up on this. Just the fact that you have a relationship to even recognize that the collectors are excited about that, it's very important. Because I think in a lot of ways when people release music on chain, they see that people are supporting them. But I feel like there's this next level that comes from actually engaging them and seeing what they think about these records and how they feel about them, and just really making them feel seen. I think that's really what being on chain represents to me, is it's saying like, yo, you not only like this song, you're actually going to spend your hard-earned money on it. And when you do that, that's someone raising their hand to be like, yo, I really fuck with your shit, you know, and you being able to recognize that and call that out, I feel like it's a big reason why you've been so successful so far.
Thank you. And I mean, you said it best, like making your collectors feel seen. I mean, that's the whole mantra for West Coast in general, you know, making music for people that don't feel seen. Because that's how I felt growing up. And I think, something that really, really, really excited me about dropping music on chain was the transparency, seeing who is supporting your music. I talk about this a bit, and like I don't trash on traditional streaming platforms. Like I've had a lot of love on streaming platforms, which is great. But the one thing I will say that is difficult is like, let's say somebody has 1 million monthly listeners, and your music's on all these playlists, and they could be on party playlists or dinner playlists or whatever. There's a lot of passive listening happening. And there's the data that you get as the artist is you might be able to see where they're listening from, like what state or what country, but you have no idea who your audience is. And you're kind of hoping that these people go from streaming your music to following you on Instagram or following you on Twitter or caring enough about your life to get to know you more. And the cool thing about putting music on chain is like, especially with sound, which I've really enjoyed so far, is like anytime somebody mints it, I can see their wallet. I can see if they have the sound account, their Twitter, I can send them a message. And that is unreal that you can have that an immediate connection with somebody where you can go, hey, thank you for picking up 2 copies, 5 copies. It means a lot. Yeah. I have this Discord, like you have 10 of them, join up the Discord and you get a role and you can hang out with me as I'm cooking up music. And it's so different, Yeah. It's something that I feel like streaming platforms, it's a privacy thing for places like Spotify and Apple Music, is like they're not going to give you the data of the people that are listening to your music. I hope down the line that they give you a chance to at least message people, because that would be awesome. If you could send a mass message to your monthly listeners, would be sick, but probably not. So putting music on chain is a great way. It's a hard landscape, especially at the moment with the way the market is, but it's really rewarding. And we've heard this so many times, but like you see it on viral Instagrams and stuff like that, but like 100 really, really passionate people is way better than 1 million people that don't care. Yeah. And I truly believe in that. I have a small Discord right now, maybe like 200 people. And it's not always super active, but there are people who are lending their time to moderate it, or I did a merch drop and somebody in my Discord makes merch and they were able to do something creative with me and get paid for it by just hanging out and being a collector of mine. And I think that's a really cool thing. It's like the collectors can build the artist project with the artist instead of an artist just feeding their content out to them and expecting them to continue to support. We can build it together.
100%. I feel like it's the access to opportunity there. It's like, as a collector, I don't think you should ever expect to be given something on a silver platter, but it's like if you show up and you actually contribute, like the merch drop's a great example. Like this collector of yours not only collected your song and join, but they made it clear that they have this discipline that they're very excited about. So when you thought about doing merch, it was an easy layup, Right. And I think in a lot of ways, on the flip side of being that 1 million monthly listener, it's so difficult for you to be seen by your favorite artist. They don't even have a way to contact you. You don't have a way to contact them. It's just funny to me that you can really collect something on sound for $2 and have like 1,000x likelihood chance of them noticing you by taking those few small actions.
Yeah, it's so true. It's actually, I think that's why the future of music on chain is so bright, because of that simple fact. Yeah.
And I mean, it's almost representative of how early we are to the equation as a whole. Because if you zoom out, I don't think that's going to be the case where you can just buy something for $1 and expect to get seen by your favorite artist. But, we're kind of at a space right now where, as you mentioned, your Discord has 200 members. That's a beautiful thing. It's like we're kind of in this early pocket right now where if you do put in the time and energy, there's an extremely high likelihood that you can be seen. And I think there's something so powerful to that, because that will not always be the case. But it's very... it highlights the moment that we're in right now and kind of how special this ecosystem is, despite how small it currently is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, man. And I think something that I would say has been the greatest takeaway from opening up a Discord is sharing the process, because I think that's a really important part. It's kind of hard to do what happened to Sleepwalking for most artists, I would say, because I have friends of mine who are successful in Web 2 and they get excited. Oh my God, Web 3 stuff. I want to drop a music NFT. And it's hard. I think to drop a music project and expect your fans in Web 2 to be onboarded or understand, or even just the simple fact, which is great, sound is giving you a credit card option, which is awesome, but the barrier of entry for a lot of traditional fans is tough, and I think that having a core audience of people in that see that you're active and see that you're joining spaces and see that you're connecting with other Web3 artists, or I wouldn't even call them Web3 artists, but other artists that are dropping on chain. You really get a chance to build cross communities and pick up people that might potentially invest in your music. Because I will say it's a small market, the people that are willing to spend money and collect songs. And so being an active participant in the space, I think, was instrumental in the success of this project so far, is that people saw me and recognized me. I was always hopping in spaces and playing a song. I played Sleepwalking probably in 1,000 spaces before it came out. And I didn't do it greedily either. I would hang out and I would listen and I would talk. And if the opportunity presented itself for me to hop up and somebody asked what I did or, what my role in the space is, I said, hey, I'll make music. And, oh, would you want to play it? For sure, And I would just promote it every day in a space,
I think that intention is so powerful because I think a lot of times artists expect people to come to them. It's like they're hosting their own spaces, they're playing their own music, etc. What I find so compelling about that is that you were going out and finding new pockets to reach new audiences. And like you said, it wasn't like you were hopping up and being like, yeah, let me play my music. Like there actually is a patience and a discipline that comes with being involved in these communities, that when you went to present your work, it's being received with open arms. There's something so powerful to that.
Yeah, man, it's a beautiful thing. And to be honest, I think just circling back to why I started this project, and I said it to you before we started the podcast today, but music is such therapy for me. And I feel like the reason why this project means so much is because, to put it frankly, like, I was bullied like a lot as a kid, and just because of the color of my skin. I'm a mixed race kid. I grew up in a town where people were harsh, and it saved my life. And so when I went into this music NFT side of things, I wanted to keep my intentions pure. It was never about money. I didn't care how many I sold. I was shocked when Sleepwalking did what it did, but I was also really excited when my next releases did what they did. I wasn't like, oh, it didn't do as well as Sleepwalking. I was like, oh my God, more new collectors. Holy crap, this is awesome. And I think my intention creating this project and the place that it's coming from, I think that's an important thing for me to remember moving forward in general, is why I'm making music, who I want to make this music for, and what I hope this music impacts people with. I think I have a really strong bond with my collectors because they understand that this music has an emotional intelligence to it that's beyond trying to just be catchy or trying to make stuff that works on TikTok or the hardest hitting beats or whatever. It really is an open journal to my life. And it was unreal. Like, in the first month of dropping music, there were 4 people that got tattoos of this logo right here on their body, which is unreal to me because they felt so connected to what was being built. And the reason why I also wear the mask was because I didn't want people to focus on what I looked like. I didn't want people to focus on what I've done. I didn't want there to be any distractions. I wanted to really focus and have people see West Ghost as themselves. And so that investment in the music, or them collecting the music NFT, was something bigger than just me or just supporting me as a person. More so supporting like the cause. Like, this music is meant to help people because it helps me.
Talk to me about that whole origin process for you. You mentioned that you had a background in the music industry prior to starting West Ghost. What was that time and place when you said, I want to start this new project? And how did you come up with sort of the West Ghost identity that you're kind of going by now?
Yeah. So I've been making music for a long time. I came out to LA. I got discovered and got signed to a label. I spent 5 years on a label and dropped 0 music. And it tested my patience the most, especially because I was just at the hands of a company and I was at the hands of other producers. And that's what inspired me to start producing my own music. And I would take it back to what I was saying before, is like making songs for projects was a huge growth curve, because I wanted to be able to drop music really quick, and that required me learning how to make it all myself and recording my own vocals and like throwing a shitty mix together and putting it up. And then it got to a point where I was like, I don't want to be known as the anthem guy, because I have a lot of stuff to say. And I had this like kind of like cathartic moment one day. I was sitting on a Spaces. I think it was like a Kid Called Beast space. And they were playing all the anthems that I made for them, and everyone was excited, and I was listening to them back, and everyone was, I'd made one in particular that was like, everyone just kept talking about over and over and over again. And I was like, man, I have so much more to give than this. And I that was when West Ghost was born. I had bought my PFP that I wear on Twitter currently. It's all white, it's tatted up, kind of like me, except I'm not all white as a human being. But it was like, it looked like a ghost. It had a mask, and I had been using the image to kind of represent like the PFP, to represent the anthems that I was making. But I was just like looking at the PFP as I was on this space and listening to people talk about this anthem. And I was like, I think I want to tell my story, and I want to be authentic about it. And I think, not hiding behind the PFP, but having it not be me as an individual, I felt safer to explore some of those emotions that I felt growing up, and those toxic relationships that I've been in, that like, I've only written love songs before that, and now I'm able to write about stuff that hurt me and stuff like that, and what it feels like to be on the outside looking in, or feel like an outcast. And then I realized, in my experiences on Spaces, like the times I would just pop up and it'd be 15 people in a space, and I'd pull out my guitar or pull out the piano and play a song, and the power that had, people were going through stuff, and like this facade of the Web3 space being all money all the time, everything's good, and people would open up and be like, I really needed to hear that today. I'm having the worst week ever. Or like, I just lost my job. Or like, I got rugged and I'm fucking depressed. And the power that music had in those moments, where it's not about just turning people up and people getting sturdy to it. It's like the emotional connection that people could have to it. So that really inspired me. It inspired me to take that leap forward and say, I'm going to do this next step of things and really dig into who I am as a person. And West Ghost, I live on the West Coast, and I've always felt like a ghost. So when I came to the name, I kind of just put two and two together, and I was like, this sounds right. This feels right. The whole branding and aesthetic kind of came together simultaneously. And that's the best part about it too, I think, is the control that I have creatively, from putting my first animations together, or just, the direction of my photo shoots or visuals, or the attention to detail on my productions and lyrics. I'm writing everything by myself, and I'm producing everything by myself. And not to say me, because collaboration is key. I feel like that's why I love collaborating with other artists, but just the full spectrum, that this is me. This is everything that I have to give. There is no filters this is going through. There's no opinions that are changing the way I'm making stuff. This is purely what I want to say. And if it fails, it fails, which is great. That's on me. But at least it's not on X label because they wanted to put this song out instead of this song, or they want me to sound like this, or they want me to look like this, etc.
Right. And I feel like collaborations played such a pivotal role in your journey. I mean, you mentioned making these anthems before you started the West Ghost Project. And since you started, you got songs with Sammy Arriaga, leading Onchain artist. You have songs with Angel Baby that went crazy on sound. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit more about how you view collaboration in the space.
I think collaboration with anybody in the space is so key. Mm-hmm. Nothing can be done alone. And one of my favorite founders kind of said this too. He's the founder of Kid Called Beast. He said, a lot of people go into the space, like I was just kind of saying, is like me. And when you shift the focus to we, what can we accomplish? What can we do? It gets exciting. There's a potential for cross-community collaborations. So like working with a Sammy Arriaga, he's built an incredible community that he's dropped an NFT project without music attached to it as well, and he's cultivated this awesome audience. So and we're always on spaces together. So one day we were like, dude, like we should cook up a song. And I'm glad we did, because, you know, then the West Coast fans start listening to Sammy's music, and Sammy fans listen to my music, and we're able to do content together and hop on spaces together. And I just think it makes the space less lonely and really exciting. And, you know, Angel Baby is another one of my favorite artists in the space. Doing that collaboration was great. It allows you to just tap into different audiences and also support your other favorite artists. And like, kind of counter to what I was saying before, is like, I love making all of my own music by myself, but as soon as I put it out there, it's not just mine anymore. And so that's where I feel like collaboration and connecting the dots and collectors play such a pivotal role. Because you can only do so much until it's released into the world. But if you don't have that strong foundation, and how do you build that strong foundation? Collaboration is key, you know? Hopping on freaking spaces, like that's huge. Like, how many times I've just sat in an audience on a space and like cold DM somebody, and it's turned into something beautiful. That's another plus to this space in general, is like, where else do you get access like that, where you could be in a space with freaking Elon Musk or something like that, or like your favorite artist, and be able to ask them a question live on a space, or hit them up in a DM and they respond. So yeah, collaboration is key. And I kind of get that a lot of my normal life, you know, outside of the West Coast stuff. I write for a lot of other artists. I've written for a ton of artists over my career, and I find a lot of joy in it a lot of times, because not every song that I make is so personal to me, and I get a chance to kind of put on different hats. One day I'm a producer, and the other day I'm a lyric guy, and the other day I'm singing melodies, or the other day I'm just helping them funnel their energy. And I think that's the beautiful part about being a creative, is kind of like finding the people that you mesh with, and trying to build something dope together.
I feel like that commitment to the culture goes so far too, because as you just alluded to, you have such this deep pocket of artists and collaborators that you've worked with for a decade plus, right?
Yeah.
But coming into the space and really focusing on people like Sammy or people like Angel Baby, it's not only taking this collaborative spirit to mind too, but you're also tapping in with people that are very symbolic of what this space represents. Yeah. And I feel like there's a lot of compounding effects to the reason why your song has been so successful on Chain, is that not only you being collaborative, but you're also pulling in these other audiences that are also doing great things in and of themselves. Right.
And I think there's not a huge competition factor about it. And that's something that's refreshing. When I talk to other artists in the space, it can feel really, really competitive in traditional markets, where it's like, my views aren't their views, and like, how come they're getting support and I'm not getting support? And I think that we're all kind of braving this new territory together. So I mean, even the event you threw, we had a fun event here, and it's a bunch of awesome artists, some people that I've met, some people that I haven't met, and everyone's willing and open, you know, sending each other tracks and saying, hey, let's get a session going, and like, let's see what we can create. I think that's beautiful. The other day I worked with this artist who I've heard on sound, and he blew my mind, and we ended up going to VCon together and performing at VCon for Gala Music. And we made a goal, like, next time you're in LA, let's make a song together. This artist named Leo Pastel, he came to my house a couple days ago, and we made that song. And that's like super cool to me that it's that accessible. You know, I'm a fan of his music, so and that's the other thing, is intention. I'll say it again, is it's not about like, how can I get his fans to listen to me? It's an appreciation for his art, and an intrigue to understand what that would look like. Same with Angel Baby. It's like, what would an Angel Baby and West Coast song sound like? You know, not like, how can I get all the Hume Collective and Angel Baby fans to listen to West Coast? It's more so like, what would we make together even? Yeah. What would it sound like? You know, would it change the game? Or, you know, like, would it be crappy? You know, so that excitement of just being a fan of somebody and being able to reach out, touch them, and say, hey, let's try something out, is a beautiful part of this.
It is beautiful. Shout out Leo, shout out Song Camp. They had a song that came out on Monday that just absolutely crushed. And I feel like the thing that's really interesting to pull out there is I have noticed that it's very challenging to change the fundamental roots of the music industry being so competitive. You know, I've noticed that in this space, in the crypto world, open source technology, open source collaboration is very welcomed and sort of like the backbone of sort of the underlying on-chain space as a whole. That is not the case for music. You know, people coming in and being willing to share, collectors share songs, make music together. This stuff happens, but it happens in a very different way. It's kind of like a label will place two artists in a room together because they strategically think that that song will get as much streams as possible, you know? Yeah. And that's a very different collaboration from you and Leo chopping it up because you had this experience at a conference together and making music for the sake of making the art. You know what I mean? I don't really know how to describe it better than that, but there is like there's a conditioning and a learning process that's happening, which is to say that when artists fully embrace being on chain, I think they start to open up a little bit more and be less protective of the fact that this is my music and my music only, and instead start to welcome in kind of the broader ecosystem and the spirit as a whole. And I think there's something really special that happens on the back of that.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think it's encouraged, especially when like places like Sound XYZ open it up. I'm seeing so much new music come out. It can get saturated, but it's also exciting because people are excited about dropping music again. And I'm seeing all these songs pop up with thousands of mints from people that it's their first time around. And that's an incredible thing that they can feel the courage to put stuff out there versus the traditional market of waiting for a viral moment to drop a song or, you know, like, the perfect storm of events. I feel like on-chain music is a great way to explore yourself while also building your future, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like it's really interesting because you mentioned earlier, like obviously these collectors aren't seeing a lot of returns right now. I think it's very important just to state that out in the open, that most people are not collecting with the intention to make a profit right now. They're buying in addition just to support your work, you know? And I think that we're all optimistic that in the future, you know, the West Ghost Sleepwalking Genesis is going to be an extremely valuable on-chain asset, but that doesn't mean that people are always coming in and trying to make money. And I think that's the hardest thing for people to wrap their head around that have been in crypto for a long time, but maybe not in the on-chain music world, is that I think a lot of people in crypto are solely conditioned to think I'm buying something with the expectation of making a return on the back of it.
Right.
And we're in this space now where you're more collecting as a form of social signaling and as a form of support. And I think that once we start to understand that there's something special to just supporting for the sake of being a part of these communities and being a part of this artist journey, it's not just about that one song. It's more like, I'm collecting all these songs because I want to be a consistent member of this community rather than buying this one specific NFT so that I can flip it for 10x, you know, a week later.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a really, really solid point. I'm glad you said that because that's a challenge. You know, the challenge is the way the space has been conditioned, especially when meme coins took over again, where everyone's just looking for profit. Or even just the NFT mentality where it's like, I'm going to buy this NFT now and in hopefully a month I'm going to sell it for 10x. And it's a challenge, you know? But I think about this a lot and I don't know what the shift is going to be, but I just imagine this example, like a Billie Eilish, like a huge artist who's already she needs no promo. She's Billie Eilish, right? If she were to drop a song on chain, can you imagine? I mean, just fans alone would pick that up, but imagine like being able to have a lifetime ticket to a show or a signed copy of something, or like maybe there's 10,000 pieces and 10 of them people can get a Zoom with her one-on-one. Mm-hmm. Like, I think about the future, and it's tough because most record labels, they haven't figured out the Web3 stuff yet, and it's a challenge. So a lot of indie artists are winning right now because they have no strings attached. But I just imagine like a massive artist taking their fan connection to the next level and what that would do for artists that are in the beginning of their careers and where they want to go. Like for myself, for example, like I want this project, I want to point back to Web3, but I want to be the biggest artist I can be. I want to be doing national tours and international tours and Grammys and all these different things. I have these big goals, and I can't wait to continue to nurture this on-chain relationship with my collectors, because the bigger the things get, the more exciting returns you can give to super fans. And I think that's something that I've been thinking about a lot, is like when there's no monetary return on investment, you're creating super fans, and they're collectors first, but the people who are really excited that want to get a leak of a new song, or like really, I started doing this thing in my Discord where I would just do a giveaway, because at first I would give away like an NFT or a collection of my song, and then I was like, let me do a giveaway for a Zoom, see what happens. And I had a ton of entries, and those 20-minute Zooms that I did with people were game changers, because they got to ask me anything they wanted to ask. They got to know what my favorite fucking color was, or like what I was working on next. I played for them live. I showed them new stuff. I remember the one, I did one Zoom right before the song with Sammy Arriaga came out. Just so happened I got somebody who was a huge fan of Sammy Arriaga, and she heard the song Ocean before it came out. And she was so excited about the Zoom. She literally got the West Ghost logo tattooed before the Zoom to show me on the Zoom. And it was so cool to see that experience of somebody feeling like there's value by holding my NFT. Is like, wow, I got a chance to hear two of my favorite artists song before anyone else, and I feel inspired enough to put this on my body for the rest of my life. He played for me live. He asked me questions about my life, and I feel like that's what we're working with right now. At least me personally is the one-on-one engagement. You keep building people one-to-one until it starts to get momentum. And obviously, like you said, when an artist gets really, really big, it's hard to have that one-on-one connection, but it's limitless for people that are the early collectors of these artists. You never know what you could be holding in 5-10 years, which is a long time to think about holding stuff, especially in this space. But if I win a Grammy one day, sleepwalking is a piece of my history now, you know?
And I think it's that commitment to the space and the understanding of how important it can be in your career that makes it so valuable. It's like, you got to really stand on that value and say to people, this means something to me. Because it's one thing to put your music on chain. It's another thing to actively go out of your way and say, this is why this is on chain and why it matters to me, and do things like that Zoom call, etc. And I think for a lot of artists that are listening to this, just take note about like the dedication to the one-on-one relationships. Because I think what I notice is that a lot of artists will drop their music, a lot of artists will make a collector chat, and then I think their relationship with their collectors is that they'll pop in, once a week, say GM, maybe drop a few notes here and there. But what I like about you is you're taking it a step further, where it's not only having that collector chat, it's actually making these moments and these connections, because those are the things that really carry it over the edge. And it's really just like a discipline thing. It's like saying, hey, I'm going to give these collectors as much energy as I would give to something else, because this means so much to me. And I think that directly results in the success of the music when it goes on chain in the first place.
100%, bro. Yeah.
And I want to also unpack what you said before there about the Billie Eilish example, because there will be a time and place when artists of that caliber are dropping on chain. In my personal opinion, I think that's going to happen after we've seen a wave of artists that have come up on the back of being on chain. And then I think those traditional superstars are going to fast follow in the same way that, iTunes artists started going on streaming platforms. I think we're going to see a migration of streaming artists coming to being on chain, but I don't think that'll happen until there's a very clear example of an artist who genuinely blows up and has a Grammy with their first song on chain. And there's a clear enough example where an artist can be like, damn, I really got to start paying attention here. Because right now, the reality is there's not a strong enough pool for an artist to do that. And especially when they don't need the money, which is most superstars, there's not a clear enough reason why an artist should have their music on chain. That, at least in my personal opinion, the most important thing is developing these acts from the ground up that have a very significant role with their on-chain presence, because that's going to be the thing that really gets people to open their minds to why this playbook is even significant in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, you said it. That's exactly my thoughts. It'd be a while. And I think that I honestly do believe, I'm excluding myself from this list, but I believe that there are the next superstars already in this space. And it just matters on how they're going to build over this market right now and what they're going to bring forward. So I just want to encourage any artist that's been thinking about on-chain or in their beginning steps of building that community, just to keep going, keep exploring, but also just build. Relationships are number one, but that's why something that was important to me was like, aside from just dropping music NFTs, I really wanted to build my Instagram presence. I really wanted to show people what West Ghost looked like, not just the PFP on Twitter on a Spaces, but how I cook up music, or like what my personality is like, and creating content for myself. And the cool thing about like dropping music on chain, and the only benefits to the monetary side is that you are able to raise capital to fund your dreams and to continue to grow your brand. I think if you're let's say you mint a song and you get 20 ETH and you spend that on anything other than building your next project, or creating new content, or mixing and mastering your songs better the next time, I think it's a grave error. I think that reinvesting in myself has been the number one thing that has allowed me to propel this forward, and pay for a music video that I'm excited about, that I direct, and finding a way to figure out how to work that on chain, and how does it benefit me to drop it to collectors and stuff like that. So reinvesting in myself is the number one thing. And for artists that don't have any money too, like let's say you do a drop and you make $0, and I think that that's something that you have to be willing to do anything. And for me, it was when I got dropped from my first label years and years ago because they just didn't know what to do with me. I didn't have access to producers and hit producers, and if I did, they costed a lot of money. So I learned how to produce myself, and it's daunting to learn a new thing, but I just YouTube things, and I asked friends of mine who are good producers, what producing platform should I buy, and like just stupid questions like what should I get to record my vocals, and I taught myself, and now I'm able to make songs for $0, which is unreal. Whereas before, signed to a label, producers were charging 15 to 20 grand for a track, and now I'm able to make that for a couple hours spent in a day. So yeah, there's really nothing standing in our way as creatives to put the ball rolling in motion. Connecting with the people that are collectors, I think, is important, but also trying to find a way to onboard people. It's really difficult to do, but something that I've experienced on the Instagram Reel side of things is I had a few people join my Discord who found me from Reels, and they're like, what's going on here? And I was like, well, I drop music NFTs. What's a music NFT? And I walk them through the process, and hopefully, can't force somebody to be onboarded, but now they know that I drop music NFTs, and they'll know to look out for them when they come, or maybe they'll start learning about them and stuff like that. So yeah.
What I find powerful about that is that you're not shying away from it. I think something that I've noticed is that artists feel really scared to talk about the fact that they are on chain, And I think it does take an artist being committed to saying like, I do this, you know what I mean? Like this is an integral part of my project. And that doesn't mean that you need to go and buy this song for $10 to listen to it. You can go press the play button on Spotify or Sound, you know what I mean? But if you really want to get deeper in this community and become someone who's actively showing up on a daily basis, here's the door, And I think something as simple as not pushing it on people to make them feel like they have to do it, but feeling confident and staying strong about the fact that this exists. I feel like that's the perfect balance that you need between those two worlds.
100%, man. Yeah.
And something else that I find really interesting about you is I want to dive into the FACELESS project because I think that that's a big reason why we're talking today, but you make so much music. I mean, I'd love for you to just talk a little bit about sort of you mentioned right there, you now have the ability to produce music in a couple hours. How many songs do you think you're making on like a monthly basis?
Oh my gosh. This past month, I think I made, not counting the songs I write for other people, I think I made 16 or 17 songs in the last month. I made 3 in the last 2 days. And I'm addicted to it, man. Honestly, every time I make a song, it could be the dopest thing. I think it's the dopest thing ever. And something pops up the next day that I just need to write. I need to get it off my chest, or I want to explore more. And it's tough when deciding to put a project together. Putting together FACELESS was, I think I sent you a link to music, and it was like 5 songs, and then it turned into 13. And it was like, whoa.
Over the course of like 3 weeks.
Yeah, I was like, what do we do here? But I think that, it allows me to make sure that I feel really, really confident about what I'm putting forward. And so I think my high output is kind of a challenge to myself to see if I can dig any deeper. And there are some days where I try and dig and dig and dig and nothing is coming up anymore. And I'm like, okay, it's time to go touch grass, you know, and do something else, like go to a movie with my girlfriend or something. But Faceless was really special, man. It, you know, before I started making the music for Faceless, I made 35 songs. From the time I made Sleepwalking in March to the end of April, I made 30 songs, and I was so stoked. I was just like, oh my God, this is the best music I've ever made in my life. And I would hop on Spaces and play them for people, like, and then this one's going to come out after this. And, you know, and I was just like ready to go. And then I had this moment where up until Faceless, I made a conscious decision to not write about relationships, because I was just like, you know, I write about relationships, you know, not as a West Coast all the time. And I want West Coast to just be about emotional shit, you know, just like personal growth and like, you know, hard times and all this stuff. And then I said, like, why am I boxing myself in? Like, I choose what I want this to be. And I was processing a lot of stuff that I've been through. It's part of my healing process to go through the painful stuff too. And I remember I made Faceless right after Way Too Sober with Oshi dropped on Sound. And I just had this weird idea. It popped in my head. I was like, this is different. This is weird. This is unlike anything else I've made. Why don't I make a reel? Just like Instagram reels. Like TikTok gives me no love sometimes. So I'm like, I'm just going to throw it on reels and see what happens and see what people think. And again, I had 300 followers at the time. I think I had like 200 and something followers at the time. So I was like, no one's going to see this anyway. So if people hate it, like, it's not like it's anything. And a week later on reels, it took off like big time. And I was like, I remember opening my phone and seeing a couple hundred comments, and I was like, oh my God, people are probably tearing this apart. Like, I should stick to not writing about love. And I was reading the comments, and for the most part, they were all like, when is this song coming out? What is this? Who are you? And it gave me a lot of encouragement, because I was just so focused on the batch of music that I was making and trying to figure out how to continue to grow my Web3 audience. I only use Twitter, really. I would just post stuff on Instagram, like a bulletin board, like, hey, if anybody ever finds this Instagram, like, there's stuff here too. And all of a sudden I had like encouragement where I was like, wow, taking a risk and stepping outside of what I was comfortable making only before paid off. And so I just dove into it super headfirst, and I made Withdrawals, which is the next song coming out and part of the Faceless EP. I made that right after that, and then it just couldn't stop. Every single day I was just like, I would wake up in the morning, I'd meditate, and I'd sit down and be like, what is it today? You know, what is it going to be today? And I would sit down in a chair, and sometimes I wouldn't even eat until I was done with it. And it wouldn't take long. It was like 2 or 3 hours, but I just fell in love with the process again. After writing so many songs for so long, to fall in love with the process before anybody hears it. Yes, having the encouragement of the reel going crazy was awesome, but to fall in love with it myself and to have that feeling too before I put it on a reel or promoted it or whatever, just to have the feeling like this is different. I think there's something here, was so invigorating, because I feel like you can get let down in the industry a lot when you're really, really excited about something, it doesn't perform well. Like you drop a mint and it doesn't mint out or whatever. It's, who cares? You know, I mean, we care, but like, it should be about how you feel about it. And I felt like there was something really, really different with this project. I think the Faceless EP is probably the best music I've ever made in my life. I stand behind the statement, and not that I wish anything bad on myself, but if my life ended after this came out, I'd be happy with this, leaving this behind. Yeah.
It's extremely powerful. And I mean, I can say that the music is incredible, and the rate at which you're pumping out quality music that just hits on a deeper level is unbelievable, you know?
Thank you.
And I think it's a testament to you having a decade plus of music industry experience under your belt. And I think that collectors are really lucky that you are now presenting this in a form where they can be a part of the journey from day one. You know, like there's something so powerful to that. So Faceless, you know, by the time that this podcast drop, it'll be coming out soon. But I'm really glad that we got a chance to sit down, man. I mean, you have such a fascinating story, and I feel like the intention and just the passion for it comes through so clearly that I'm just stoked to have been able to give you an opportunity to tell your story.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it so much, man.
Yeah. Well, cheers to the Faceless EP coming out soon. We got West Ghost in the building. Anything else you want to say in closing words before we wrap this up?
West Ghost is forever, and hug your friends, hug your family. Stay positive. Life is hard sometimes, but music brings us together. And I just want to thank every single person in the space that has supported me, even if you haven't minted a song, just showing me love, giving me flowers. It's so encouraging, and it's honestly saved my life. Aside from any amount of streams or any amount of mints that I ever do, just to know that somebody else sees me and makes me feel understood, and can relate to the music that I'm putting out is enough to keep me going. So thank you guys.
There it is. West Ghost, invest in music. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.